Hello and welcome to Steps to Maths. In this short video we'll be looking at long division with algebra. So first of all, let's have a little reminder of how we did long division in primary school with numbers, and specifically it's the method that I want to have a look at. So let's look at the number 5,508 divided by 17. So the method we used was we would say, how many times does 17 go into 55? The answer would be 3, and we'd put 3 up in our answer row up at the top, and then say 3 17s is 51. We would subtract the 51 from the 55 to find our remainder 4. So that's our 55. Take away 51 leaves us with a remainder of 4, and we bring down the 0 and the 8 to give us 408. We then would move on to the next digit to give us and ask the question, how many times does 17 go into 40? The answer would be twice, so we put the 2 up in our answer row at the top and say 2 times 17 is 34. We would subtract that 34 from the 40 to give us a remainder 6, and we would bring down the 8. Okay, so you should know this. This is just a little bit of revision, so I'm not showing in particular all the steps, but just reminding you of how it works. So then we move on to the next digit, the 8, and ask the question, how many times does 17 go into 68? The answer is 4, and you get 4 17s is 68. We'd subtract the 68 and find that there was no remainder, meaning that 17 goes evenly into 5,508 324 times. Okay, so that's the method. We go step by step. We say, how many times does 17 go into 55? We find the remainder 4 and bring down the 0 and 8. We ask, how many times does 17 go into 40? We find the remainder 6 and bring down the 8. We ask, how many times does 17 go into 68? We find there's no remainder, meaning that the number goes in evenly 324 times. So let's have a look at the algebra. Now algebra is exactly the same, and in some ways it's actually easier, because we're not asking how many times 17 goes into a particular number. We're going to be asking fairly straightforward numbers. So we have the algebraic expression 21x squared plus 13x plus 2, and we're going to divide that by 3x plus 1. Now I've put the 3x plus 1 into brackets because we want to look at that as a group, 3x plus 1 altogether. Okay, so the 3x. So the steps that we do are we ask, how many times does 3x go into 21x squared? So we don't ask how many times 3x plus 1 goes in. We just look at the 3x to begin with. How many times does 3x go into 21x squared? And as you know from your algebraic division at this point, 3x goes into 21x squared 7x times. So the 7x goes into your answer row at the top. Then exactly the same as in long division with numbers, we multiply the 7x by that entire expression, 3x plus 1. So we're taking the 7x, which was our answer from the division, and multiplying it by our divisor, 3x plus 1, to get 21x squared plus 7x. Okay, and we're going to subtract that from the line above to find our remainder 6x. So we're doing exactly the same thing. We're asking, how many times does our divisor go in to the first part? We're multiplying out and subtracting to find our remainder. Okay, so we subtract 21x squared from 21x squared, which leaves us with nothing, as expected. And we subtract 7x from 13x to leave us with a remainder of 6x, and we bring down the 2. Then we ask again, we repeat the question, how many times does 3x go into 6x? And the answer is it goes in 2 times, which goes into our answer row at the top. We then multiply the 2 by our divisor, 3x plus 1, which gives us 6x plus 2, and we subtract that to find that there's a 0 remainder, meaning 3x plus 1 goes evenly into 21x squared plus 13x plus 2, and it goes in evenly 7x plus 2 times. Let's compare the two side by side. So on the left hand side, we had 17 into 55 goes 3 times. In our algebra question, we had 3x goes into 21x squared 7x times. So we're just dividing in to find out how many times it goes in. On the left hand side then, we said 3 times 17 is 51. We did this because we want to find out what our remainder is. On the right hand side, we did the same thing. We said 7x times 3x plus 1 to get 21x squared plus 7x, and we subtracted that to find our remainder. On the left hand side, we subtracted 51 to get a remainder 4 and brought down the 0 and the 8. On the right hand side, we subtracted 21x squared plus 7x to get a remainder 6x, and then we brought down the plus 2. We then repeated this process. On the left hand side, we said 17 into 40 goes twice. The 2 is multiplied by the 17 to get 34 and subtracted to find the remainder 6. On the right hand side, we just find how many times does 3x go into 6x. The answer is twice. We multiply the 2 by 3x plus 1 to find 6x plus 2, which leaves us with 0 remainder. So if you look at this, or even pause it here and compare the two of them, you should be able to see that the process is more or less the same. The only difference is, on the left hand side, we'd be asking how many times does 17 go into 55. On the right hand side, we only ask how many times does the 3x go in, and not the 3x plus 1 to begin with. Okay, so look at those two processes and you should be able to figure out how the long division works. So you divide in, you multiply out and subtract to find your remainder, and repeat the process. Divide in, multiply out and subtract to find your remainder, and you keep going, and that's how it works.